The Pope was announced dead some hours ago, and we already got an experience from a sister, revealing a shocking truth concerning the Pope death and his current end in the other realm. One of the things this sister revealed was the fact that she wasn't conclusive concerning what she saw, but rather seek your own interpretation. Kindly stay through and give your own opinion concerning this shocking revelations about the Pope. Hi, my name is Rosemary Nosa. Although I would have said my name doesn't matter right now. What matters is what I saw, and why I've decided to speak about it now, after many days of silence. Just a quick one, sir. I was born into the Roman Catholic Church. It was all I knew growing up. We went to church, prayed the rosary, and respected the Pope like he was the closest man to God on earth. I never had a reason to question anything. I just followed along like everyone else around me. But something happened on the 12th of March. Something I've never forgotten. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a story someone told me. It was real, so real I can still feel it even now. But for many days I was too afraid to talk about it. I kept it deep inside of me because I thought no one would believe me. I thought people would laugh or say I was lying. And I didn't want to be made fun of. So I stayed quiet. But just a few hours ago I heard the news. The Pope died. And suddenly, that thing I saw all those days ago came rushing back into my mind, strong and loud, like it had been waiting for this moment. Something inside me told me now is the time. Not tomorrow. Not next week. I don't know exactly why, but I believe God wants me to speak. Sure. To let others hear and maybe help me understand. I'm not trying to act like I know everything. I'm not saying I understand what it all means. That night, everything felt normal. I had brushed my teeth, said my prayers, and lay on my bed, just like any other night. I wasn't feeling sick. I wasn't scared. I wasn't even thinking about anything deep or spiritual. I just lay there, looking up at the ceiling, waiting to fall asleep. Then, without warning, something strange happened. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel like I was dying. But suddenly I saw myself from the outside. It was like my eyes opened in a different way. I was still there in the room, but I wasn't in my body anymore. I saw myself lying down, still as ever, eyes closed, chest slowly rising and falling. Yet I was standing above the bed, fully awake, fully aware. I didn't float. I didn't fly. I just became aware that I was not inside my body. I was beside it, watching. And I wasn't scared. I thought I would be, but I wasn't. That's what surprised me the most. There was peace. Not the kind you feel when everything is going well, but a deeper kind. Like I was safe. Like someone powerful was in control. I could feel things more clearly than ever before. The air around me felt full, almost alive. I could hear the silence, if that makes any sense. It was like I had woken up from the sleep of everyday life and was now. One moment I was in my room, floating above my bed, and the next, it all changed. I didn't feel myself move. I didn't feel like I traveled. But suddenly I was no longer in my house. I was in the sky. There were no walls, no ceiling, no bed. Just open space, wide, quiet, and full of light. The sky around me wasn't like the sky I had seen before. It was brighter but not like the sun. It was peaceful, with a soft glow that felt alive. I wasn't afraid. Felt small but safe. Like I was being carried, even though I didn't know where I was going. I looked around, and that's when I saw them. Two beings stood in the sky before me. I didn't need anyone to tell me they were angels. Just knew. They didn't have name tags. They didn't speak. But their presence was strong, gentle but powerful. They looked like men, but not in a normal way. They had brightness around them, almost like they were wrapped in light. Their faces were calm and serious, but not scary. They looked at me like they had been waiting, like they knew me. They didn't say a word. But in their eyes I felt something, like a message too deep to speak out loud. A message I wasn't ready to fully understand. Before I could move, before I could speak, they were gone. Just like that. No flash. No sound. They simply vanished, like smoke fading into the air. But they left a feeling behind. A feeling that something holy had just touched me, even if for a short moment. After the angels vanished, I found myself standing in a place that I didn't recognize with my eyes, but my spirit knew exactly where I was. I didn't need anyone to explain it. I didn't see a sign, and no one spoke to me. But deep inside I knew. This is heaven. It wasn't just a thought. It was a strong, quiet knowing that filled me. The kind of knowing that doesn't need proof. The place itself carried the truth. I had never been there before, yet it felt more real than any place I'd ever seen on earth. As I stood there, taking in the overwhelming beauty of this holy place, something else caught my attention. A movement, far ahead in the distance. I saw a long line of people, stretching as far as I could see. There were men, women, young and old, all walking slowly and quietly in a line. The people in this line were not just from one place, they were from everywhere. I could see faces that seemed familiar, yet different. Some had darker skin, some lighter. Some had different clothes and hairstyles. Some looked like they came from countries I knew, others from places I couldn't even name. But there was something that united them all. They were all walking toward the same place, silently, peacefully, as if they had been waiting for this moment their whole lives. Their faces were serious, yet calm. I didn't hear anyone speaking, but I could feel the weight of their journey. Each person was moving toward something that was meant for them, something important. The line of souls grew shorter as they neared the gate. One by one, the people walked up, stopped, and stood before a being that I could barely describe. He wasn't like any man I had ever seen. He was glowing, not with a harsh light, but a pure, powerful brightness that made everything around him seem to fade into nothing. Each soul, as it reached the gate, was faced with this being. There was no sound, no movement except the person stepping forward, then standing still. I could feel the heaviness in the air as each person waited for whatever was next. There was no need for words. The judgment was clear in the way they stood, the way they looked up to the being. It wasn't about words. They were being seen in a way that was deeper than anything I could understand. I couldn't help but watch, feeling the weight of their decisions. The quietness in the air was not a peaceful silence. It was the silence of something powerful, something eternal. Each person seemed to take a breath before they were judged, and that breath felt like the last moment of their lives. No one spoke, but everyone felt it. This being, this presence, was not a man or woman. He was something more. He was radiant, too bright to look at directly, but somehow I could still see him. His form was not like a person. He was like light, only different. A light that filled the entire space without ever burning or hurting. It was a calm light, but it held authority, the kind of authority that made you tremble in its presence. He stood by the gate, and each soul came before him, one by one. I noticed how they were all so still, how they didn't run or hide, even though they might have been afraid. There was something about the being, something undeniable that made them submit. They knew that this was their moment, when all would be laid bare, nothing hidden. Then it happened. The Pope, yes, the man I recognized from the world below, stepped into the line. I knew it was him, even though I couldn't see his face clearly. He was dressed in the same garments I had seen on TV, the white robes, the hat. The sight of him made my heart stop for a moment. I didn't know why, but something about this moment felt different. He approached the being and I watched closely. It wasn't like the others. He didn't just stand there waiting. He seemed to kneel, almost as if he was asking for something, but there was no voice. It was a silent plea. And then, the being at the gate did something unexpected. He didn't speak words, but I could sense something happening, something being decided. At that moment I felt a force pull me forward, and I was no longer standing at a distance. I found myself moving closer to the Pope, closer to the judgment. I tried to look up to see his face, but I couldn't. It was as though something held my eyes down, stopping me from seeing clearly. But then I saw something on his record, something I didn't understand at first. Words that made my heart race. Words I could never have expected. I wasn't in control anymore. The force that pulled me closer felt like it wasn't my choice. It was as if my body and soul were being led by something far more powerful than I could understand. I didn't want to move forward. I didn't want to get closer, but somehow I was drawn to him, to the Pope, as if I needed to see what was about to unfold. Even though I felt the pull to move closer, my head stayed low. It was like I couldn't lift it, like I wasn't supposed to. My body wanted to stay humble, to remain bowed, but my eyes, they wouldn't look away. As I stood there, drawn forward by the force I couldn't control, my eyes were fixed on the Pope's record. I felt as if everything else around me faded away, and all that remained was that document, glowing faintly in the light that surrounded us. What I saw on that record was clear but confusing. There were words written, details, decisions, actions. At first, they appeared to be in order, neatly laid out, a reflection of a life lived, of choices made. But then my heart skipped when I noticed something strange. Sections of the record, whole portions, had been crossed out. The lines through the text were thick, heavy, almost as if someone wanted to erase them completely. I tried to focus on what was left. The words that remained seemed important, yet I felt an icy shiver run down my spine as I read them. What I saw next was almost impossible to believe, but there it was, written, not erased, for me to see clearly. The words burned in my mind. He pledged his allegiance to the Antichrist. I couldn't breathe for a moment. Pope, the man who led millions in faith, the one who had shaped my understanding of religion, had pledged allegiance to something, someone evil, a force that was not of God. I wanted to look away, to deny what I was seeing, but I couldn't. It was there, undeniable. The truth was written in front of me, in cold, hard text. This wasn't just about him. It was about a much bigger deception, one that had woven itself through the lives of so many, myself included. As I stared at the words, a deep sadness filled me. I had always believed in the teachings, in the system, in the man who was supposed to guide the faithful to Christ. But now everything felt broken. How could someone in his position, someone with so much power, turn away from God in such a way? The weight of it was unbearable. But there was more. As I read on, I saw another section of the record that had been crossed out but was still visible. The words made my stomach twist. He was to lead the faithful to the light of Jesus, but instead, he embraced the darkness. He spread false teachings, encouraging the world to accept what God had condemned. The impact of those words hit me like a storm. How many had followed him? How many had trusted him without question? And here, in this place, in the presence of the being at the gate, the truth was revealed. The false teachings, the compromise with evil, were laid bare. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about one man's fall from grace. This was a warning, a heavy burden of truth meant for everyone to see. The path of deception wasn't just limited to him. It spread, reaching far beyond his influence, into the hearts and minds of the people who had followed him blindly. I felt a deep sadness, a sorrow that was hard to explain. The weight of the false teachings he had spread was like a heavy stone pressing on my chest. How many lives had been twisted, led astray, because of this one decision? How many had unknowingly walked down a path of destruction, believing that they were walking in the light? As I looked up, still unable to lift my head fully, I felt a mix of sorrow, anger, and disbelief. I had seen something that was not meant to be hidden, but revealed for all to understand. The truth of his choices, his betrayal of God, was now clear. I stood there, my heart racing as I watched the Pope. He knelt before the being, his once strong frame trembling. His eyes, full of sorrow, looked up in a way that felt desperate, as though he were pleading for forgiveness, though no words were spoken. His cry wasn't one of rebellion, but of regret, a deep, gut-wrenching sorrow for the choices he had made. The weight of his actions had crushed him. I could see the tears in his eyes, shimmering in the strange light of this place. He wasn't pretending or putting on an act. This wasn't about pride or the position he once held. This was raw, unfiltered grief. It wasn't just the regret of his own choices, but the consequences of those choices on countless others. His weeping wasn't just for himself. It was for the lives he had led astray, for the faith he had corrupted. The angel's hand was raised, not in a command, but in a gentle gesture, pointing to the left. I didn't fully understand at first, but the direction felt significant, like it was guiding the Pope's fate, or at least, showing where he was to go next. I felt the pull again, as though my feet weren't my own. But this time I was not moving. I was frozen in place, watching, waiting for what would happen next. The light around us seemed to grow dimmer, the scene shifting, but I was still locked in the moment. The movement of the angel's hand was slow, deliberate, and I knew then that something important was happening. Before I could fully grasp what was happening, everything shifted. It wasn't a smooth transition. It was more like being yanked away, like the scene was being closed off abruptly. The figures, the Pope, the angel, the being at the gate, all seemed to dissolve, becoming blurry as if the world I had been in was slipping through my fingers. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I wasn't ready to say what it all meant. But I wanted others to interpret it. Maybe together we could piece it together and find the answers. The experience had shaken me to my core, and I knew that this was something important, something that could change everything. I'm not here to claim some divine authority or special knowledge. I don't know if the vision was a warning, a message, or just a glimpse into another reality. What I do know is that it felt real, and the feelings it left me with were undeniable. But I will not make bold claims or offer any final conclusions. That's for others to discern. This is where I ask for help, because truthfully I can't do it alone. I'm sharing this experience with the world, not because I have all the answers, but because I believe someone else might. I'm asking anyone who reads or hears this to share their thoughts, their interpretations. What do you see when you read this? What do you feel when you hear about the vision I had? Maybe you have insight, a perspective that I haven't considered, a piece of the puzzle that I'm missing. I'm not looking for people to agree with me or validate my experience. I simply want to know what you think because I believe this experience is too important to be left to one person's understanding. Maybe through the collective voices of others, we can start to understand what it all means. Perhaps someone else has had a similar vision or experience and can offer a deeper insight into what I saw. In a way, this is an invitation to open a conversation. A conversation about faith, about what happens after we die, about the nature of judgment, and the role of those we trust to lead us. I don't have all the answers, but I believe that together, we can explore this and find understanding. Thank you.